And that is how you make karma your boyfriend. Your Saturn return will reward you with freedom and love. I know those are not the things you hear associated with Saturn. Yes, there will be delays, disappointments, pain, but the freedom will be real and visceral. The love will be real and visceral. What the fuck am I talking about? Here are my qualifications. I'm an Aquarius rising ruled by Saturn with Saturn in the first. Most of my chart is in the 12th house in this Capricorn stellium. I am very familiar with Saturnian energy. You will hear astrologers say that if you are favored by Saturn and you're familiar with the Saturnian energy, it won't be as bad. They were wrong. It was incredibly challenging, and this is coming from a person I have felt like I was 30 since I was 3. I'm incredibly familiar with hard work with responsibility. But even for a well-placed Saturn, you are called to audit all the areas of your life in which you envisioned your responsibility, but have not taken practical steps to make them concrete. If you've known that a relationship is not right for you, if a career path is not exactly right for you, if where you live, how you communicate, depending on the house Saturn is not exactly right, Saturn will push you to do the thing that you knew, that you said you were gonna do. Saturn will push you to break the actual pattern, because wanting a problem to change versus actually taking the steps to change it are very different things, and Saturn will remind you of that. And the reason it is difficult is because we do not want to actually accept responsibility. It is way easier to not grow up and talk about the problems endlessly. We want to believe that there are no consequences to our actions. But there are, and Saturn will remind you just how big those consequences can be. Now, in my Saturn return, I left an 8-year emotionally abusive relationship. I moved out of a moldy ass apartment that was causing significant damage to my health. My Saturn opposes my moon in my natal chart, and so it impacted my body, and my Saturn's my first house of self and body. I have never hired a lawyer before, but I hired a lawyer to break the lease. I moved into the new apartment by myself during grad school and started to write my book. It was a really painful chapter of my life. And the reason I say that the Saturn return will give you freedom and love, because the real pain lies in your incongruence, which is not caused by Saturn. Saturn is here to reveal it to you, to show you the ways in which you have not been accountable for your own pain. So when I say Saturn return offers you freedom, I mean that in the same way that the Devil card in tarot offers us freedom. Freedom from the chains that bind us. You learn to earn your freedom. The question that my Saturn return asks me is, why aren't you leaving? Why aren't you saying what you want to say? Why aren't you taking the action to care for yourself? So when I say love, I don't mean the love of another person. I don't mean you were experiencing a Venus return, right? I mean that you will gain the ability to practice loving yourself, not in the superficial bath bomb, take myself out for a drink type of way. In the very difficult way of, this apartment is impacting my health, and there is a large part of me that can just be small and shrink here till my lease ends, but what does taking care of me actually look like? The question becomes, what are you willing to do for yourself with all this self-love, right? With all this independence. When your lawyer says you should hire a moving company to pack for you, and I am confident that we can get this money back, and you need to make a decision of whether or not you will put your money where your mouth is at, right? It invited me into discernment of, this is not the relationship I deserve. This is not the relationship I want to be in. This is not what me being loved in the world should look like. And actually initiating the breakup, actually facing the fear of narcissistic retaliation from the abusive partner. And my point here is not that Saturn will put you through trials and tribulations and you will come through the other side with freedom and love if you take anything away, please don't let it be that. What I wish I had known. All of these difficult, painful, challenging, discipline-ish things that we associate with Saturn is the practice of freedom, is the practice of love. The actual lesson for me is in the integration of, oh, these ways of dealing with pain and suffering is taking control over my life instead of letting my life happen to me, of accessing my freedom, of working at loving myself. In some ways, I think of it like a vow renewal. Instead of being like, Daddy Saturn is gonna come and check your homework, it is, hey, what are the vows that you want to renew with yourself? And what cost are you worth to yourself? And that is how you make karma your boyfriend.